So I've been thinking a lot about lore in my Minecraft Forever world. I know there are a lot of YouTubers who consider themselves storytellers and take pride in their ability to craft stories through their Minecraft worlds. Mojang themselves have made it an effort to continue to add lore in recent years, whether it's through Happy Gas or the Deep Dark and Ancient Cities or archaeology, or go back before that to the Nether update and Bastions. So, lore is pretty obviously important to keeping people interested in the game or keeping your own interest in a long term world. And by having that lore, it provides motivation and inspiration to keep going. You know, Minecraft is a sandbox with infinite possibilities, and infinite possibilities can feel overwhelming at times. So, by having that story of your world, it gives you that guidance and direction to keep going and to expand upon the story that you've already started to tell. You know, I definitely wish I had more lore in my Forever world. I'm already 4.5 years into this world now, with many more years playing Minecraft before that, so you'd think I'd be better at it. But I've always felt like it's hard for me. I've never felt like I was a great storyteller. And I've never had the greatest memory of events from my own past in order to retell those stories or remix those events into new stories. I've just never felt like I was all that creative with this. But when I started this world, I knew I wanted it to be my last Minecraft world. There might still be other worlds where maybe I'm just playing around or doing some sort of challenge. But this was going to be the last Minecraft world I would ever spend the majority of my time playing in. So I knew it was going to be important to try to tell the story of my world, to have a way to be able to look back at years of progress years from now in the future. So from day one, I knew exactly how I was going to proceed with this world. I was going to wall off a main section of my world. I was going to map that entire section of my world before I built anything that would be visible on the map. I was going to create locked versions of those maps so I could always compare where I am at now with where I started. And then I was going to restrict most of my building to this section of my world so that I would be able to see noticeable progress. And I really do love this idea. I love being able to see the progress on maps. I love that I am constantly reminded of the builds that I made even in the early days of this world. I'm not tempted to abandon this part of my world for greener pastures every time a new update or new biome or new structure comes out. Since then, I've expanded the main areas where I build. I've cleared out a huge section of the Nether corresponding to that main section of my overworld. I've built an over 2,000 block long subway tunnel through the Nether that connects different areas of my world. And I've flattened an entire mushroom island so that I have a space to do creative style builds. But not before mapping the island, before getting started in the same way as I did near spawn at my home. And I still try to limit most of my exploration to a reasonable degree to the areas along that subway tunnel. And I still try to spend most of my time and most of my effort within a limited set of areas, even though those limits have gradually kept expanding over time. And I really feel my world is better for it, because then at least sometimes I'm forced to be reminded of the things I built in the past and build upon those stories rather than just always doing something new. The second main thing I did to try to create lore in my world is when I decided to start sharing my world and sharing my thoughts on YouTube. Sharing with others can be a great way to create lore and to create shared memories of the history of a Minecraft world. Now, I know when I decided to put myself out there that I was putting myself into a crowded space and that all of this comes a lot more naturally to some people. But my thought was that even if no one ends up watching, it would make me want to spend more time in my world. It would spark the creation of lore and ideas for my world, and perhaps even it might flame a desire in me to want to share lore and to want to tell stories. And I think for the most part that's worked. In the past, there have been times where I spent weeks or even months without spending any time in Minecraft. And since I started sharing my world, I've had much more resolve to keep going with it. And it even has sparked the creation of lore. When I decided to finally flatten that mushroom island because I wanted to share it, I created my Geon Neode alt account so that I could do time lapses. Now, I happen to play on Bedrock Edition where we don't have replay mod, and the tools that do exist to do this kind of thing are pretty clunky. So, recording from the point of view of an alt account is a really straightforward way to do it. And that introduction of Geon meant that I wanted to create lore and mystery about his sudden arrival into my world. So I built this island in the sky that, in the lore of this world, just showed up out of nowhere. I built him a house. I brought him companions to keep him company and make him comfortable in my world. Echo the Wolf and Glimmer the Happy Guest. And the naming and character design of Geon obviously alludes to a deeper connection between Geon and myself, which gives me more opportunities to build on this lore in the future. And there's other smaller examples of lore too. When I drained my ocean monument, I built an oversized fishbowl and transported one of the Elder Guardians to the fishbowl for safekeeping. I still haven't had the heart to take down those Minecraft rails, but when that Elder Guardian somehow died or glitched out, or who even knows, I built a monument in its memory. I've tried to create lore through other inhabitants of the world in simple ways, whether just by naming my librarian villagers or creating a nitwit sanctuary for some of my residents who might otherwise be kind of useless, or rescuing 2 cats from a witch hut. Villagers and pets can be a great way to add lore. So about that 2,000 block long subway tunnel. I finished the tunnel to its current length and finished the walls and arches and blue ice pathway about 6 months ago. There's still lots of work to be done because I still need to create all the stops along the way. I need to design a way to get up to the platforms from each stop. I need to power the rails and maybe a dozen other things I want to do. But I really wanted to commemorate this undertaking. This took me multiple years on and off from start to finish. I built a TNT tunnel boring machine, advanced it over 2,000 blocks, and still had to fix up the walls from all the destruction as I was going, and had to mine tons of blackstone for those walls. So years from now, when I've forgotten all the toil that went into this, I want to be able to look back on it and to remember that experience, and to relive the satisfaction and the reward that comes with building something big like this. So while it was still at least relatively fresh in my mind, I took the time to write down the details into books. I wrote down how the tunnel boring machine worked, where I got the designs from, what went wrong along the way, how much effort was involved, and how many blocks I had to destroy, and how many blocks I had to place, and how much ancient debris I was able to gather, and every other detail I could think of. I placed the machine behind a glass wall, stopping it at a point that felt representative of the overall experience of mining the tunnel. The exposed blackstone, the falling gravel, the floating ancient debris, lava falls, gas, skeletons. I built myself a gift shop with trinkets and rocks and its own clothing line and food and beverages. I took the time to create some banners to place out front and give the museum a name, even if it's clearly not the most creative name I ever could have come up with. I even built myself an Easter egg on purpose by not lighting the bathrooms up enough to prevent mob spawning, so that my future self can be in for a surprise when he opens the door to find a skeleton in the bathroom. Another build I've been wanting to do for a long time was to mine out the closest end portal to my home area and build sort of an inverted pyramid leading into the portal to make it easy to fly into the end. There are some really interesting combinations of biomes in this area and transitions between biomes. Because I created this world in 1.16, the Nether update, then I explored this narrow strip of land in 1.17, Caves and Cliffs Part 1 before the height limit and biome generation changes in Caves and Cliffs Part 2. So that's how I ended up with jungle and other more lush biomes surrounding this narrow strip of desert and savanna. Now, I know I said I was trying to keep my builds within the walls of my main area, and this is clearly outside the area that I'm mapping, but the defined strip of land still gives me some rough borders to keep my builds within. So if I was going to build this inverted pyramid, I would need to pick a build style. What kind of materials? What kind of shape exactly? What kind of vibe do I want it to give? Now, I had already decided to drain my ocean monument years ago in a particular shape, a rather unique shape actually, which is called a squircle. What, you ask, is a squircle? Well, a squircle is a shape that is intermediate to a square and a circle. It is not just a square with rounded over corners, but rather this more gentle transition from square to circle. Now, this is Minecraft, so everyone is building squares and rectangles all the time. And if you get sick of squares and rectangles, you're probably going to find yourself looking up how to trace out a circle instead. But I wanted something more special, so I picked a squircle. And obviously, I was way ahead of my time because now even Apple has decided they are going to use squircles for all their new icons. And you know, even the end portal itself is a bit of a squircle. And then I had this moment of inspiration because I had just completed the island in the sky and house for Gion, and I had made the island itself and the glass spirals below in the shape of a circle. So what if I created lore around shapes? Or more generally, what if I created lore around specific building styles that I found interesting? So what if I created a set of guilds that I could identify with, in the same vein that people might identify with a character class in an RPG, or a favorite type in Pokemon, or a house in Harry Potter? And so the 8 builders guilds of my world were born. Before I even got started digging out the end portal, I found myself creating an entire lore built around different groups of builders, organized around specific shapes and build styles and approaches that make sense for me and work for how I build and work for how I play the game. So we have the Order of the Squircle, the ultimate pragmatist who, when faced with the choice between square and circle, took the middle ground. We have the Echovians, represented by the circle, echoing to an almost circular nature of time, and someone who looks a lot like me has shown up in my own world out of nowhere. Then we have the Quadrati. Obviously, we need to have the square. They favor ordered patterns and repetition. We have the Hexarchate, who are a splinter group of the Quadrati. You know, there's been this argument in games for a long time whether a square or hexagon grid is superior. So the Hexarchate have broken off to support what they believe to be the superior repeating shape. And then there's the Interwoven, another splinter group of the Quadrati who find themselves drawn to tessellations and fractals and more intricate repeating patterns. I've always found those kind of shapes interesting. We have the Foundry, who represent the simplicity and authenticity and nostalgia of old Minecraft. Now, I believe modern Minecraft is simply a better game, but I think that people who yearn for the simplicity and limited block palette of old Minecraft have a point, calling for ugly builds and even playing old versions of the game on purpose. This obviously has a place in my world. I even built an old style village on purpose, so I definitely think this should be one of the guilds in my world. Next, we have the Cataclast, named after cataclastic rock, which is formed by breaking apart pre-existing rocks. One of my favorite things to do in Minecraft is to destroy something somewhere only to rebuild it into something new somewhere else. I'm often playing Minecraft to unwind. I want a repetitive task, and the mining part of Minecraft fits that perfectly. This lets me mindlessly gather up a bunch of resources to build into something new and impressive somewhere else. And then finally, we have the Chaos Loom, which represents playing the game at a more meta level. So I enjoy seed finding and loading up seeds and looking for interesting world generation, and have even done a few seed related shorts. I've enjoyed playing around with creating behavior packs with custom biomes. I've even thought about the idea of unleashing a bunch of AI agents on a Minecraft world just to see what would be built. Now, I'm not really sure how to incorporate any of this into my forever world, which is vanilla Minecraft. But any of these kind of experiments and playing around with the game at a higher level will be under this Chaos Loom banner, even if I have to do those experiments in different worlds. So those are the 8 guilds. And then on the 9th layer of the pyramid, I have this multicolor banner representing my entire neon geode world. This is my world, so I've tried to pattern this after what I find interesting in the ways I build. So you're not going to find a guild dedicated to texturing or to depth or to any number of building techniques you might find in YouTube building tutorials. That's not to say there's anything wrong with these techniques. They are all really great and useful. Many of my favorite creators use these techniques, and I do too, in moderation. But it's just not a recipe for me to build something special or unique. My builds are not generally trying to recreate the real world, or the medieval world, or any specific style of fantasy world. I just build what I want to in the moment, and there are many talented people out there who will always be better at this than I will, and I could spend a huge amount of time and effort into getting better, but quite honestly, being the best at building is just not what is going to bring me joy or satisfaction. It's just not what I get out of playing this game. So I'm very excited about how this turned out, and immediately I had so many more ideas about what I wanted to build in this area of my world, and also about how I wanted to expand out on the lore. I built out this set of 9 end pillars in the same colors as the pyramid, of course making sure to build them as squircles instead of circles, and then a set of 9 end gateways in between the pillars using skulk in the center. And then, since the whole idea of this was to fly into the portal from the main area of my world, I planned out and built another project I've been meaning to try out for a long time. So I built this set of elytra rings leading from the main area straight into the portal. I literally just planned out the placement of the rings in a creative copy of my world using a random block, I think it happened to be stone, and planned out the design for a single ring using concrete and banners and end rods, and then wrote down all the coordinates of all the 18 rings and built them in my survival world. And this is really a lot of fun. I can definitely recommend anyone build some elytra rings in your own survival worlds. And this is all giving me so much more inspiration for what I can build in this area. I immediately wanted to light up the village next to the end portal and one farther away to keep them safe at night. I want to dig out this desert pyramid here and build a really nice nether portal and build some bridges and paths connecting everything together. And this area here, in between everything, looks like the perfect place to build out Grid Warden City, which will be a city built by the Quadrati in a grid pattern. So obviously, having figured out more of the lore of my own world, I feel like maybe I should try to pass on some advice. Even though, as I've said, I've only created this lore 4.5 years into my own world, and it still doesn't quite feel like it comes naturally to me all the time. But that's perfectly fine. So some of my favorite easy ideas. The first one is to map your world. Even if you don't do like I did to create the before maps, a nice map wall to show off your world is just so satisfying to see. And it becomes a really quick way to be reminded of all sorts of different things you've built in your world. Second is to limit where you build, and to place limits on yourself in general. Creativity is really hard, but it becomes easier if you have a direction to go instead of infinite directions to go in. So build a wall around a section of your world and let yourself see that progress and be reminded of the things you've built in the past, and then build upon those stories. Third would be to name things and to write things down. Give your build a name and write down when you created it on a sign. Write things down in books. Related to that, add life into the game. Villagers and animals and pets, and give them names too. Commemorate happenings in your world. Put your first pickaxe in a frame. Build a museum. Keep old builds around instead of destroying them so you can see how far you've come at this game. And bring the real world into Minecraft. Maybe some inspiring bit of nature, or an interesting building you saw, or something you saw on vacation. And finally, just think about what makes the game enjoyable for you personally and be honest about it. Just because someone else does something really awesome doesn't necessarily mean it's the right thing for you. With that said, if you have any great ideas of your own or ideas you've heard from others on how to create lore in your worlds, please share that in the comments section. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you're maybe just a tiny bit more inspired to keep building in your own forever world, or to start your own forever world. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.